Chapter 26. Lying in a hospital bed, Mrs. Canby wondered how the family were coping without her. She had just been told through a translator that she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer. She feared the worst for herself and her family. How would they manage without her if she didn't recover? Her usual routine at home was to get up a good hour and a half before everyone else and go to bed an hour later than everyone at night. Her day was filled with chores: washing, ironing, cleaning, organising the children in what they needed, making meals and packed lunches, tending to her husband's wants. Every day she would make a proper cooked breakfast of potato roti, eggs and chai. And she never complained or moaned. She had become reliant on Abby to help her. She had known from a young age that this was expected of her and had worked this hard since she was 8. Besides, it had been easier while she had help from Abby. Her heart lurched as she thought of her. She wondered how Abby was coping in her new home. Then Mrs. Canby realised that this stay in hospital was the most rest she could remember ever having had. She certainly never had a holiday. With nothing to do but lie there with her thoughts and wanted to keep her mind off her illness, she started thinking back to when she was a small girl. She and her 5 sisters did all they could to help their mother with the household chores, and even though they worked hard, they always had fun too. The days were full of chores, but in the evening their mother would give them handmade wooden knitting needles, and they enjoyed long evenings of singing folk songs as they knitted. Ah, she sighed at the memory. She missed her family, but she wasn't a girl anymore, and once she had married, she didn't belong to them any longer and had to concentrate on her husband and rapidly expanding family. The consultant had asked the translator to question her about her family medical history, the women's in particular. It was only then that it occurred to her that most of her female relatives had died young, including my mother and one of her sisters. Nobody had talked about it at the time, but on reflection, perhaps, they too had suffered from breast cancer. It would explain the silence around illness and deaths. Mrs. Canby had been married very young. After her wedding day, she never saw her mother again, as she had died within weeks of the ceremony, aged just 30. One of her sisters had also died in her mid-20s. As the translator ran through the consultant's questions and explained what would happen, Mr. Canby also stood there, and she could see the fear on his face. But she couldn't know that he was also experiencing the dawning realization of what had happened to her relatives, and that he did love his wife, and really it was only now he realized how much. What she did expect him to be worrying about were the practical matters to be faced. Mrs. Canby was to be in hospital for some time, and they both knew she couldn't be expected to care for the children and house alone, even with Pinky's vain efforts to help. As Mrs. Canby feared, her organised home was complete bedlam in her absence. Monday morning had brought new problems. "Come on, get ready for school. You do it every day, you must know what to do," Mr. Canby yelled. "You're going to be late." "I can't find a clean t-shirt, and where are my trousers?" Addie screamed. "Dad, Pinky's not washed any of my clothes." "Shut up! Mum's only been in hospital two days, Addie." "Ah!" Their father put his hands on his head. "Just get dressed now." He'd never had to deal with such complaining and arguing before. "We haven't got any milk, Dad." "What shall we do for breakfast?" Pinky asked. In all the pandemonium, he had still not been food shopping, so there was no bread and no milk, and no Mrs. Canby to make their usual cooked breakfast. He ordered Addie to go to the shop. "Why me? Make Pinky go," Addie protested. "Go," his father yelled. Half an hour later, they sat around eating soggy cornflakes. "Hey now, come on you, we'll be late for school," Mr. Canby bellowed. "Pinky, not you. You stay at home today. Someone has to clear up this mess and look after Abby." As Addie scrambled from the table and followed his father out of the door, Pinky was left literally holding the baby.